So let's take our seats, inshallah ta'ala, finish our conversations, regardless of how funny or important they might seem to be, and we can get started with this program. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, wa ba'd. So welcome to the Islamic Institute of Orange County. This is going to be our election panel that we have. It's called the Muslim Vote and You. Now, obviously, a lot of people are here and more people are going to be coming in because they feel that this election is particularly important and is particularly concerning for Muslims living in the United States of America. So, we have three different opinions that are going to be presented here today. As you know, as a 501c3 institute, we don't support any particular candidate, but what we want to do is we want to educate the community by having conversations and having dialogues so that people are already having discussions, dialogues, debates on their own private space. And what we want to do is we wanted to bring people who are at least very passionate and at least supposedly more informed on their subject when they're speaking so that they can actually represent the side that they're presenting. So you can hear some of the different arguments and then you can come to your own conclusion. So we're not going to be giving any conclusion. What we want to do is make this an educational opportunity. This is actually used to be a debate program called the FAM debates, or the Future of American Muslim Debates. We've since changed away from our debate format and we made it into a discussion format. Virtually, it's almost no different except that it's not called a debate anymore, it's just called a discussion. So inshallah ta'ala, hopefully that is more fruitful and it feels to be less confrontational. So we're going to get started. Let me introduce our panelists. First of all, we have Brother Al-Jabbar. Al-Jabbar is a resident of Orange County. He frequently attends the Islamic Institute of Orange County. He is also on the school board with the Anaheim Unified School District, Anaheim Union School District, and is officially representing the Democratic Party in that capacity of school board. Yes, that's Brother Al-Jabbar. And we have Sister Zahra Billu, alhamdulillah, from Northern California, currently still the Executive Director of CARE in San Francisco Bay Area. And she's a blogger. She writes, are you a blogger or no? Just write some posts online. So she's somewhat well-known personality. So she's going to be presenting the position that we should not vote for either candidate. Brother Al-Jabbar is going to be saying that we should vote for the Democratic candidate. And I think all of you should know who that candidate is, Hillary Clinton. And then we have Sister Saba Ahmad on the phone with me right now. She's on her way. She got stuck in traffic from LA, but she should be here in about maybe 5 to 10 minutes, hopefully, inshallah. She is with Muslims for Trump campaign, and you might have seen her on Fox News several times, supporting Donald Trump as a candidate for president. And inshallah ta'ala, she's going to be joining us very soon. So she's on speaker so she can tune in to what's going on here. So we're going to get started. The way this format is going to work is I'm going to start by asking some general questions to our panelists here. Give them a chance to express their views about the elections that are coming up. Then ask some more specific questions that are catered to the panelists themselves. And then we will have some time for Q&A after that is done, inshallah, if time permits. So our hard stopping time for this event is going to be, Brother Samer? Our hard stop time will be 9 o'clock? It will be 9 o'clock, inshallah. So that's why we want to really make sure that we get straight to it. So let's begin. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. So Al, why don't you start, here's your microphone. Why don't you start by telling us who are you voting for personally, and why do you think we should vote for that person as well?
Absolutely. So part of, I think I had to come prepared to say that I'm going to support the nominee of the Democrats, but it's no secret that it's Hillary Clinton. So let's just put it out there, right? The reason that I said that is I was joking around. I was a very hardcore Bernie Sanders supporter during the primaries. And when he lost, there was a section which basically said, hey, Bernie or bust, we're not going to vote for Hillary, just move on. And then the rest of them said, hey, we need to elect somebody who is a Democratic Party nominee. But I take a look at the opposition, which is our Donald Trump, dear friend Donald Trump, who's insulted pretty much everybody in this room and insulted probably most of the minority communities, calling them names, insulted, I don't know if you in tuned with the news just breaking today, which was really horrible, insulted women, which he has been doing for the whole time, but I think today's breaking news just showed how crude he could be. As a father of a daughter, as a father of another 2-year-old son, I don't want to be in a position to say that we elected a president who is of that caliber. Going back to why I would vote for a Democratic Party nominee who is Hillary Clinton, in all essence, if you take a look at it, she is well experienced. And I'm of the view that if, as a Muslim or even an American for that matter, if you're at the table able to make decisions and able to influence somebody, for me as a person involved in the Democratic Party in Orange County or as an elected official, I've seen that I've been able to, as a minority, to influence the decisions and influence the decision-making process of the Democratic Party in terms of the views of minorities, in terms of views of how things could benefit us as a community. So I see it as I have more influence in that party, and I think that voting Democratic, voting Hillary Clinton will have more of a say. And I know we'll probably get more into the discussions of policy issues. Yeah. And I know that Sarah is here. She's probably going to be talking about, let's not vote for any party, and we'll have that healthy discussion.
We'll have that discussion, so just introductory. Same question, Zara. Who are you voting for, and why should we vote for the same person?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you all for being here on a Friday night to even have this conversation. I know it's been a year where many of us are thinking about the elections and worried about our future, rightfully so. It's sad to me that it takes a presidential election for us to care this much, and such a terrible one for this many people to mobilize, but the silver lining is that we're mobilizing. Honestly, I haven't decided. They all disgust me. I'm really unimpressed with all of them. And I think many people thought that because I wasn't going to vote Democrat or Republican, I was necessarily going to vote Green, but Jill Stein's running mate's position on Syria isn't great. And the other guy can't even remember where Aleppo is, right? And thinks it's a joke. So they're all pretty horrifying in my perspective. And the difference for me between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, as I've explained it in the past, is the difference between being punched in the face or stabbed in the back. We know that both of them have a bad track record when it comes not just to Muslims in this country or minorities in this country, but also Muslims everywhere else. That the experience that Hillary Clinton says she brings to the table is 30 years of bad experience. It's not good experience. We have not benefited from her being in a position of leadership. And as a woman, I am not going to be particularly liberated by another woman choosing to bomb many, many countries. Is there anything that needs to be said about Donald Trump? Is anyone in here actually thinking of voting for him?
She's on her way, yeah.
Yeah, so she's not here yet. But aside from Sabah, is anyone else considering it? So here's the thing. They're all terrible. My concern is that with the amount of attention we're spending on the presidential race, we're forgetting the bottom of the ballot. So I'll talk about that in a second. But particularly for Muslims in California, I think we have a different opportunity. There's been a lot of writing by Muslim leaders across the country saying we need to support the Democratic Party because Trump is such a horrible option. I think that that's a difficult question for Muslims in swing states to consider. We're in a solid blue state. Hillary will carry California regardless. So if we agree that we are stuck in a two-party system, and we agree that both candidates are troubling, one more so than the other, but both are troubling, right? Even people that were former Bernie people who have now moved over to Hillary, some are saying they have to hold their noses to vote for Hillary. They're not excited about it. They're doing it because it's the least evil option. In a state like California where it's solid blue, one of the most important ways that we can make impact is by saying that we're frustrated with this system. And what does that mean? That means voting a third party. It means voting in Green or voting in Libertarian, not because you like those candidates necessarily, but because you're saying the Democrats and the Republicans aren't working for us anymore. A strong green showing or a strong libertarian showing in California will send an important message to the two parties that they don't appeal to either of us, that neither of them appeals to us, and that we need them to move in one direction or another, but that they shouldn't take our votes for granted, which is what they're doing right now. My other concern is you can vote Democrat or Republican down the rest of the ballot, so long as you're voting down the rest of the ballot. When I'm going to Candidates Forum and we're holding Mobilize the Muslim Vote events across California, I ask communities, how many of you know about the congressional race that you are going to participate in? How many of you know who your city council candidate is? I didn't vote for Obama both times, and I'm grateful to not have blood on my hands because I didn't. Here's the thing, though. He made some really great promises. I didn't believe him, but a lot of us did. And when he failed to fulfill them, he blamed Congress, right? Do we know who's running for Congress? Are we looking at the rest of the ballot? When the president and Congress agree about the need to accept Syrian refugees into various parts of our country, governors are blocking that. Are we involved in the state legislative races, right? And so all the way down,
we're about to get
matters.
into that, right? So back to the original question, though. So who are you voting for? Are you voting at all for a presidential candidate?
I might write in your name, Sheikh Mustafa Omar.
Okay, I will take that. All right, let's move on to another question then, since Saba's not here yet, and we'll come back to her on these questions. Why is the presidency so important? I mean, does it really make any difference? I mean, does this federal system actually protect us as Muslim minorities living in this country?
So the reason that I see that the presidential election is important, I think Sabah is right in terms of California. We're not a battleground state. So, sorry, Zara, my bad. Zara, because we're not a battleground state, right? We don't have Trump or Hillary Clinton campaigning here because we don't care. We don't matter for them because it's a solid blue state. But in terms of a presidency itself, the reason that it matters is whoever is in that position gets the opportunity to appoint a Supreme Court justice, gets the opportunity to appoint Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Education. So the reason that I advocate, vote Democratic in terms of a presidency is that if you take a look at issues that concern minorities, I'm a school board member, and I could tell you that in terms of a state, but even federal, how it affects downward, and I think I agree again that, we need to be concerned more of the down ballot too. The presidency is important because of the decisions that they could make and influence in terms of where money goes, what the Supreme Court justice is going to say, right, because of the appointment that they get. So all that's why I think that a Democratic nominee or a Democratic Party candidate would do better for the minorities. And even for Muslims, right? Because we're at the table. If you take a look at the Trump section of the Republican Party, I say that ultimately the party itself nominated Trump, so that's indicative of the Republican Party. But if you take a look at the Democratic side, you have two Muslim congressmen who are representing the Democratic Party in Congress. You have many state representation, or even at the Democratic National Committee, you have Muslims who have a voice. Right? You have many folks who are very influential, who are close to the Democratic Party leadership, which allows us to have a seat at the table and bargain. With the Republican Party, unfortunately, you cannot say the same. And again, to send a message, we can vote for Jill Stein or the Libertarian candidate. Again, I can't remember his name either. Oh, Gary Johnson. Yeah, we could say Aleppo. But they're not at the table.
Okay, so same question for Zahra. Presidential election. I mean, why is it so important? Is it important? I mean, does it really make that much of a difference?
The presidential election
You agree that it's important?
matters. I agree. I don't think that one presidential candidate over another is going to significantly improve the condition or deteriorate the conditions of Muslims or anyone else.
Okay.
When we look at President Obama's tenure, yes, his Department of Justice has protected mosques from zoning regulations. They've also sent in the FBI to spy on mosques. Sure, they want to settle 10,000 refugees in America. They're also drone bombing American citizens and others across the country. So it matters But is one party better than the other? I don't think so. I mean,
So it's
when
not
we
going to
think
be
about-
significantly
No,
different,
and
even
when
if
we
Trump
think about
comes
being
into
at
power.
the table,
Okay.
when we think about being at the table, it's important to remember that in 2000, the Democrats wouldn't sit with the Muslims, and the Republicans would. We were at the table, and so I always wonder: is it like, as much as I abhor Muslims for Trump, and I think they're really comedic, with all due respect, I'm glad that they're trying to be at the table too. And so I wonder: is our being at the table, in the condition that we're at the table with Democrats right now, actually advancing anything for us?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question then, Al. Have you heard of the term respectability politics?
Right.
Do you think some Muslims are playing into that right now?
Well, well, I guess so, right? But I think let me just.
You
go
realize
ahead.
it's a pejorative term?
Yes.
Okay.
So let me.
Okay.
Let me go ahead, because I wanted to hit this point, because in terms of policies, right? You're right in a sense that you might not get much of a difference, but we as a community have not been engaged as much as other people, right? If you think about the African Americans, or if you think about the Hispanic community, or if you even think about the Jewish community, they have been playing this in the political arena, not only by donating, but also organizing, out-organizing people to be at the table. We're still at the infancy of that. So yes, if we don't get into that process right now, we're going to be where we are at. But I think for me, I see the difference locally, and that's why I'm advocating it, because locally we used to, like you said, we didn't have Democrats or Republicans friendly to the Muslim community at one point. But we built relationships. I think IIOC has done a great job in building relationships. Different mosques have done great jobs in building relationships, to the point where we elected the first Muslim in Orange County. That's me, right? So that could happen only if you're engaged at a party level, if you are able to make that choice of being active within the Democratic or Republican Party, for the sake. The reason that I say that, not going with the Green Party or the Libertarian Party is that they don't have a structure, right? They are there to vent anger. They're there to protest. But if you ask them, what can you accomplish? They can't, because they don't have numbers. Even in school boards, or even in state legislature or the Congress, they don't have numbers. Where do we impact by making rules? Is that Congress or a local school board or local city council? Unfortunately, it's a two-party system. You got to be a part of the Democrat or the Republican. And I don't want to put down Sabah or folks who are saying we're Muslims for Trump, because at some point in time maybe they're doing what they're doing to engage in certain things, but it's important to have representation on that side too. And that's why I respect her. I mean, it's a tough choice to actually sit there and say that I'm supporting Trump, and especially as a Muslim, but at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Okay, so this question for Zara. Do you think we're spending too much time, too much money, too much focus on this presidential campaign as Muslims, and we just need to start focusing more on local politics and just do away with this obsession with the presidential candidate? Or do you think this is actually very important? We do need to focus on this equally, if not as much.
So I think we need to focus on the bottom of the ballot. But I also don't agree that we're spending too much time or money on the presidential race as a community. There are websites where we can look up who gave how much money to which campaigns. And someone in the crowd must remember which one. But look up one of these websites, and then look at your 20 best Muslim friends. They won't have given money to any campaign, right? And as much as we talk about California being a solid blue state, that doesn't mean that we can't influence the swing states in either way or at all, right? So when we ask people in this crowd, how many have volunteered for the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, the Democrat, the numbers are low. And so I worry that we're spending a lot of time talking about the presidential race and not even knowing what is on the bottom of the ballot, myself included, right? I haven't vetted the city council candidates in my district in San Jose. Actually, I don't have a city council candidate because that guy won in May, right? But I only learned that a week ago. So even myself, I'm spending way too much energy thinking about the presidential race and not doing enough. It doesn't mean that I'm doing a lot on the presidential race either, and that's where I struggle with that question.
Okay. You wanted to add something?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
And I double down on that, because what impacts everybody, even if you're a Muslim or not, at the end of the day, what impacts you most is your city council race, your school board race. And I agree that Muslims are not in the forefront in terms of actually engaging. When I ran for school board, there were only very few Muslims who actually came out and said, I will support you and I will open up the checkbook and write a check for you, right? It was preliminary. Most of the money that I got was from the non-Muslim community. But that is, again, going back to we are at the infancy stages of getting involved. And that's why I think this particular presidential cycle, again, going back to your question, this particular presidential election is good because of Trump, you have activated a whole lot of people who probably wouldn't have paid attention into any type of political race, right? Now, because of that, it gives us the opportunity. I'm managing a campaign, a shameless plug for a candidate who's running for Anaheim City Council, Dr. Jose Moreno. The reason that we can engage our Muslim brothers and sisters in that particular race is because they're thinking about the presidential race. So it gives us the opportunity to say, hey, go vote against Trump, but come down and vote down the ballot for a city council candidate who affects your lives in your particular race. Like, for example, getting a mosque permit. We don't have that problem in Anaheim, but that would affect in a community like Ontario or Corona or those areas where we've had challenges.
Okay, getting back to the presidential debate here. So some people are saying that, you know what, none of this really matters. Even political engagement for the major part doesn't really matter because it's all dictated by corporate interests, regardless of which candidate you're choosing. What response would you have for that?
It is true. I think Saba is here.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome to IOC and welcome to LA traffic. All right.
So going back to the question in terms of corporate interests, we have the same problem in Anaheim. There is a reason that we're fighting that in Anaheim City Council race that I am managing because we have corporate interests in Anaheim. It's very true, but I also say that politics matters because I see that as a school board member locally in Anaheim Union High School District, I saw how it could impact having a Muslim candidate or Muslim school board member, right? When it comes to issues of discrimination or issues of certain harassment against our students in classrooms, it gives the opportunity, and I know we worked at IIOC and CARE to actually have, for the first time in Orange County, to have Islam 101 for our school district's principals and assistant principals and the district so that they understand what Islam is all about. Now, that couldn't have happened. I'm not saying that it wouldn't have happened, but it allowed that particular vehicle happen because we had a Muslim school board member who said it's very important that we do that to educate our folks, right? So it allows us, and that's why I am a big proponent of getting young people engaged in the process earlier on, and especially Muslims to engage in the process because you're going to have an impact in your local races.
Okay, Saba, welcome. I honestly think that probably at least half of this audience is here because you're here. So we definitely want to hear what you have to say. So the first question to you is if you could do an intro on who are you voting for and why do you think we should vote for that same person, which is Donald Trump in your case.
All right. Well, assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Salam.
My deepest apologies for being late. I didn't factor in the 2-hour Friday evening rush hour traffic from LAX to here. But anyways, I am voting for Donald Trump. I run a group called the Republican Muslim Coalition. We seek to educate Republicans about Islam and Muslims, and we also hope to get more Muslims involved within their local Republican parties. The reason I choose to vote for our Republican nominee is primarily because of all of his anti-Islamic sentiments. I feel like if Muslims are involved within his cabinet, within his administration, they're in the best position to change his views. Just like you were saying, having even one single school board member who is a Muslim makes a difference. The same thing, if there's a Muslim on his cabinet, it will make a huge difference. And similarly, if they're in key administration positions, I think we can send a huge message. Yes, he has said a lot of anti-Islamic things, anti-Muslim things, but at the same time, he's toned down a lot of his anti-Islamic rhetoric, primarily because Muslims got involved with this campaign, and they are also getting involved with his high-level advisory commissions and stuff. But what I wanted to urge was, I know he's directed a lot of insults at a lot of different people, and but he's not a traditional career politician. He's not polished like Clinton or others, but I think he's surrounding himself with the right people. We got a chance to hear Governor Pence this week, and I thought he was very well. So even though Donald Trump himself may have some, may need to act more presidential, I think, the people he's surrounding himself with is the Republican Party base, and they do have the best interests of America at heart. I've gotten a chance to meet a lot of them. I actually think Islamic values align a lot more with the Republican Party than they do with Democrats. I feel like we're very much pro-life, pro-traditional family values, traditional marriage, pro-business, pro-trade. A lot of things that our community generally cares about align with the Republican Party. And we must not forget, 15, 16 years ago, 70% of our community voted for President Bush. And that was primarily because of our Islamic conservative values. And that's why I don't choose to leave my values just because after 9/11 we faced a backlash. And a lot of people turned to Democrats. And I know they espoused liberal policies, but for me personally, my faith conflicted with that. And that's why I left Democrats, and I don't feel that I can support a lot of their pro-choice, pro-LGBT, a lot of their major policy agendas I have strong disagreements with, and I feel at a faith level, I feel comfortable within the conservative party.
Okay, how many Muslims are there approximately that are actually supporting Trump or part of your Republican coalition here?
Well, we are setting up chapters in various states. We just started earlier this year. We are getting active in Virginia, Illinois, Texas, Florida, and Ohio. And I'm sure there's lots of Muslim Americans all across the U.S. I think the last survey poll showed 11% Muslims supporting Trump, and that was well before, I think, January, February. So I think right now those numbers must have gone up. He is the presumptive nominee, and actually, I think Muslims can't afford to ignore such a huge Republican Party that controls the House and the Senate, and they're very much on their way to controlling the White House. So I think we need to have our strategy about how we will be lobbying Republicans and how we'll be making an influence and impact within their administration.
So you're saying one of the reasons why you want to support Trump is because you can influence him and his cabinet in order to make better policies for Muslims. Can't you have that same type of influence without actually being a part, being a member of the party and, kind of supporting every single victory and every single thing that they do? Have you considered that as an option?
Well, I can't support Democrats for very strong faith reasons.
Okay, so you have another person sitting next to you who's also not supporting the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I mean, people have different reasons for why they choose to support who they do.
Okay.
I really do believe in the Republican Party, and I think, if we get involved, we can take over, in terms of having our own voices heard. They're much more open to our perspectives because there's so much, we align with them on traditional family values, traditional marriage. A lot of the core fundamental Republican values are something that Muslims tend to agree with. And, right now is a great time to get involved in the Republican Party because they actually want more minorities. They have struggled with minorities for a long time. And, we do have two governors who are minorities, Indian Americans, and Nikki Haley, and we had Bobby Jindal. And I know they're looking for more minorities to step up and get involved at higher levels of public office and within the Republican Party.
Okay, as a Muslim, don't you believe that, we should be supporting, defending the values and the rights of all of humanity? I'm sure you would say that. But Donald Trump has actually been defined by his hatred or by his statements against Muslims, against Mexicans, against women, just recently, as you've seen, even against a disabled reporter in South Carolina. What is your response? I mean, how do you support someone who has said all of these things and continues and doesn't even apologize?
I think he issued his first apology today. I thought I saw
Which said, if I offended anyone, right? So which is really not much of an apology.
Like I said, he's not a traditional career politician. He hasn't been polished for the last 30 years like Clinton has or anyone else. Right. Obviously, he's struggling to act more presidential. I was hoping, within the last year.
Meaning he's struggling to care about the rights of Muslims and Mexicans and women?
I think Muslims and Latinos
Is
and
that
all-
like that's what needs to be more presidential? Is that
no.
Okay.
We need to get involved within his campaign to
Okay.
change their views and have our policies made whatever we want. If we're not at the table, they're going to be saying whatever they want against us. I think it was ridiculous to see some of the anti-Muslim sentiments come out of them. I don't think that sort of should have a place in 2016. And unless we're on the table, they're not going to listen to us. And they're not going to, the people that were on there, who were advising them, were so anti-Islamic and anti-Muslim. And I mean, I lobby in Washington, D.C. regularly, and I run into those people, and I'm surprised with the lack of Muslim lobbying effort within Republicans. I mean, we have all the resources that we can get, but we're not lobbying strategically and looking beyond the insults and kind of focusing on what our community needs and what our interests are and lobbying for those, regardless of what insults are thrown at you. We have to stay strong and kind of be very strategic about why we're engaging with them.
Okay. You were at the Republican National Convention. Some people said that they felt like they were at a Ku Klux Klan rally. I mean, honestly, what did you feel when you were there?
I didn't feel like that.
Okay.
I got a chance to meet with Newt Gingrich. I got a chance to ask him because he made some comments right before then. For me to have like direct access to a lot of the high-level people, I met with Governor Pence. I saw Donald Trump. I mean, I was surprised. I mean, I was a handful of Muslims. There was like 3 or 4 of us. And I was like, at the entire convention, it was sad that this is the level of our representation within the Republican Party. And this is the party that is currently controlling Congress, which makes most of our laws. In the House, in the Senate, we have no say. And I was very disappointed because when I try raising that within the Muslim community, I face double backlash because not only the Muslim community is generally against me, the Republicans also have concerns with Islam and Muslims. So it's like double struggle.
Do you understand why that could be, though? You understand where
No,
they're
I
coming from?
totally understand that, but I feel like we need to build bridges and we need to stop instead of tearing each other down. And I mean, I got involved in the DC Republican Party, made some very good contacts. And I mean, I think, everybody can do their part. And that's what we're hoping with our chapters in different states. They're getting involved, like in Illinois Republican Party, they hosted a recent event with Donald Trump. I mean, I think, these are not some gods or like kings. These are normal people. And if we have, in this country, we have access to them and we have the resources, so why not make our voices heard at the highest levels?
Okay, Al, question for you. Supporting Clinton, Hillary Clinton seems to support foreign intervention. She supports the Iraq War. She supports militarization, the military-industrial complex. Does it bother you that a lot of people are going to have to die, a lot of children, a lot of innocent people, and you actually are one of the people who supported her and supported her campaign and actually helped her get into office? Does that bother you?
Well, regardless of the party, right? If you take a look at the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, you are going to have to fight as a Muslim community or people who actually don't want foreign intervention. We have to do that fight regardless, because it's the foreign policy of the United States is such that you're not going to get, I think Zara mentioned, is you're not going to get much of a difference when it comes to foreign policy. Maybe with the Democrats, like Obama did, or certain people within the party advocated for, you might have a little bit of leeway in terms of saying, hey, let's go the peace route, right? It will be a tough challenge as a person who supports the Democratic Party, but for me, I'm taking a look at a global perspective, right? When you take a look at supporting a candidate at a national level, or even for Congress that matter, you're looking at the bigger picture of where certain people stand on a lot of issues: education policy, healthcare, minority or criminal justice system, all that. And then there's that term which says you choose the lesser of the two evils.
Right.
Right?
So as a whole, choosing the lesser of the two evils. But you do agree that she's a form of evil, then?
Good way of putting it. And you know what? I think if you were to be honest with it, it's true.
Okay.
At the end of the day, if I'm supposed to sit here and say you're choosing lesser of the two evils, it's some form of evil, because at the end of the day, You might not agree with everything. I know, Saba was mentioning about values. Sometimes there are issues that you sit down and say like, hey, I might not agree with it, but at the end of the day, how is that candidate going to affect education? How is that candidate going to affect healthcare? Because, that's not the only, the cultural values are not the only thing that we should make our decision in terms of when we are voting for a candidate, right? And I applaud you, right? I applaud you, and I'm not saying this just to kind of patronize you. I think it's a bold stand that you're taking in terms of sitting there and advocating for Trump, I don't know, but within the Republican Party, yes, because I think we do need representation within the Republican Party. Again, that goes back to my argument of saying we need to be at the table. We need to be at this table to influence and push people to make decisions. Now, maybe if Trump gets elected, you will be the token Muslim who will get appointed to a position, but that will give you an opportunity, right? That will give her an opportunity to make certain decisions. Maybe they're not going to hear you the first time, but it'll give you an opportunity to build and appoint and maybe recruit interns who are Muslims who will work with you, who then in turn will have an opportunity to go within the party to build tolerance. I think that's what we did with the Democratic Party, right? With the Democratic Party, after the Iraq war, you had many Muslims who just in droves supported Democrats, right? And that, in essence, what did it do? It allowed us to elect Muslims within the party system. Within, like we have Democratic Party chairs who are within our county systems, right? We have Democratic Party delegates. I know a few years back we had a major push to have Democrat delegates elected in California, which allowed us to then in turn be at the table to push for issues that we care. And that's how we elect. That's when we could actually reduce her intervention wanting to go to war. Because at that point, what we're doing is, in numbers, we are going to have control at a party platform or at a party endorsement. We get that opportunity to influence people to say like, hey, we're in numbers. Now you have to talk to us because we have a vote within the party for your endorsement. Okay. Now sit down and
Question
talk.
for Zahra. So what do you think about that? Do you think that this getting at the table, ensuring a seat at the table is worth making certain sacrifices in terms of our values, in terms of certain positions? And do you think that this is anything to do with respectability politics, and does it work?
It's so funny because I think that I was about to ask you permission to ask a question, but you asked what I was thinking.
Okay.
And what I'm really struggling with is that you can be at the table and on the menu at the same time. There have been token Muslims in Obama's administration. Some of the most recent appointees are supporters of countering violent extremism programs, right? There's a Muslim in the CIA who helps lead the drone program targeting Muslims. So I'm not into getting respect through a system that is broken and corrupt. And I'm not into sacrificing any of my values to do that. I don't think that we're any safer when we do it because we think one evil is less than the other evil. It's still evil. What I'm struggling with what's being said like all night is what I'm hearing from both Al and Saba is they don't particularly like the candidates that they were asked to defend. They're pushing for them because they see that as a form of engagement. And I've never said don't engage, right? Like, I support people who want to be involved in the Democratic Party. It's a little harder for me to support people who want to be involved in the Republican Party. But I think it's important. I also think we need Muslims in the Green Party, in the Libertarian Party. And I think that we can have influence in any of these parties without supporting these really horrid, horrendous candidates. A local example.
Even Muslims in a swing state?
So again, we're talking to a solid blue state here. I think what I often say when I'm asked about the swing state, to be fully honest, is I am so glad that I am not forced to answer that moral question.
Okay.
Because I don't think I could.
So I was going to throw theoretical at you.
But I want to give an example of a local race where Al and Saba and everyone in this room could have an influence in the Democratic Party without having to support Hillary Clinton. And it's Loretta Sanchez versus Kamala Harris. Loretta Sanchez is a local congressional member who has offended Native Americans, who has offended Muslims, who, I don't know, did some teenage millennial pose at her recent debate, and I don't even know what it is, right? Versus an African American, mixed race, former district attorney who has a stellar record, who has served her state and isn't going around embarrassing or offending people. Both Democratic candidates, because California is in such a unique position where we have an open primary for the state positions. You can have an influence in the Democratic Party, really involved. You can fundraise for both of these candidates. You can show up to their various events and likely get appointed as a token Muslim in a position for either of them, really moving the Democratic Party, because both of them sometimes seem like polar opposites. And you wouldn't have to answer the Hillary question to do it. You wouldn't have to support an evil person, admittedly, on this panel.
So this debate, this discussion is being live streamed around the country. So just 1 second, to Zahra, question there. So if California, if Hillary and Trump were neck and neck, they were tied, third party candidate doesn't have a chance of winning, who would you vote for?
To be honest, I would probably still vote third party. Now, I recognize my privilege in doing so because my only experience is growing up in California, and I've been in the Bay Area for 10 years where we don't even have Republican congressional candidates. That's like a joke of the past for my region. So I recognize that I have a certain privilege in doing so. I also have other privileges as a US citizen, as someone with a graduate degree, right? Like, I'm not worried about getting deported. Like, that's not really something that keeps me up at night. I'm worried about hate crimes. I'm worried about surveillance. And I feel like the risk of either of those things is very real from both of them. Hillary Clinton in the last debate said we need more surveillance, right? Like, she would follow an administration that has spied on the Muslim community, that has assassinated US citizens without warrants abroad. Like, how is she any better for me? Donald Trump is a symptom of 15 years of bad policies from both a Republican and a Democratic candidate. So I recognize my privilege, and I'm grateful that I don't have to make that decision. But I really think that even if I were in a swing state, I would vote a third party, if for no other reason than to try to advance them to the 5% that would force them into the debates and increase the conversation in a way that, fortunately, extreme candidates, the good kind of extreme, from each party did in the primaries, right? The Ron Pauls, the Bernie Sanders over the years have done this, but I think we need to do it on a bigger scale.
Okay, your colleague in Michigan, Dawood Walid, he just today released a statement. He's the executive director of CARE in Michigan. He voted third party in 2012. He did not vote for Obama, and he said that today he has changed his stance. He's voting for Hillary because we can't risk to have Donald Trump in office. Why is he wrong?
So it's really important for me to clarify that I'm here in a personal capacity.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're
but hear me out. But that CARE is a C3 organization. And so that means that we don't endorse any candidates, and hopefully the voter guides that the CARE staff have brought tonight will make that very clear. You can see the voting records and read about the propositions and all of that stuff. But one of the other things I say that I love about working at CARE is the diversity of the staff that we hire. We hire from the community. We're entirely funded by the community. So we've got a Republican executive director of one of our offices in Florida who was on The Daily Show a few years ago talking about wanting to run for a position in his local Republican Party, and despite all of the efforts of Sabah and friends, which are new, they weren't there in time to help him because he didn't get that seat because he was a Muslim. Dawood chooses to vote Democrat. I disagree. His major piece was about the Supreme Court nominees. There have been Supreme Court nominees who have been put forward by Democratic candidates, Democratic presidents in the past who voted conservative on key decisions, right? So there was a Kennedy nominee that voted the wrong way on both Miranda v. Arizona and Roe v. Wade. Decisions that are critical to our civil rights as Americans. I disagree with Sabah about the right to life. I think that I have the right to choose what makes sense for my body if I'm like a rape victim, if my life is in danger, right? And I don't think it's the government's place to push these things into back corners and street alleys, forcing abortions with coat hangers. But that's a longer conversation, right? Like Miranda v. Arizona is something that we rely on today as a Muslim community that is frequently stopped by law enforcement, right? Like, I need to know that I have the right to remain silent and the right to an attorney if I'm in custody, and really any time ever. And so if you've got conservative justices or conservative-leaning justices that come from Democratic presidents, I'm not particularly comforted by who Hillary Clinton will put forward. She is a centrist Democrat. If I had my eyes closed, I would mistake her for a Republican, just given how much Wall Street money she's taken, her support of wars, her support of increased surveillance. Like, she's not Bernie Sanders. I think it might be a different conversation if it were Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump. But Hillary Clinton, to me, most days looks very much the same.
Were you a Bernie supporter prior to?
Hesitantly. And I said that I would support him if he got the nomination, but I also, by the way, have already reserved my airfare for January 20th in D.C. to protest him had he become president. So I booked that back then as soon as those tickets opened, before prices went up. So this is my other piece, is that let's look at the bottom of the ballot, and let's make sure that we stay engaged on November 9th, because most of us will forget about everything on November 9th. We'll either feel like we should celebrate, or we're relieved, or we're just stuck with more evil for 4 years. But the real work begins on November 9th.
Oh, very good. Somebody wanted to say something?
Sure. I think we should repel evil with good. And in terms of the California Republican Party, I actually have very good friends. And, you know, Indian Americans have made strides all over San Francisco, and some of the leading Republicans from California come from our communities. The Sikh American community has, I think, the committee woman for California is also Sikh American, and she's a very high-level senior official within the Republican Party. I think I want to see Muslims get involved in the California Republican Party, and I hope in the future that would be something you guys would consider. If not for anything, just do it for Dava's sake. I think just our presence there makes a difference. Go to the local Republican meetings. They're open to public. Go to their events. You know, people will start noticing that you're there, and it's all about us getting involved. And as far as, you know, you had made some comments about foreign interventions. I mean, we saw Obama administration's weak foreign policies in the last several years. I think they just watched as Syria deteriorated. 400,000 people died, and they did absolutely nothing. And now bringing in a few thousand here to show their humanitarian side is complete nonsense. I think Hillary Clinton started the Libya war. She was directly behind the Gaddafi ordeal. I think, you know, she is.
What do you think Trump would do for Syria?
You know, he's talked about less military interventions in Middle East, and he's also talked about, you know, assimilating the people, refugees in neighboring countries. And I think that's a good thing, that, you know, they can probably become assimilated much faster in neighboring Arab nations. It's more of a coordination issue than bringing them here and putting them on a lifetime of poverty and government support, I think. You know, and a lot more needs to be done. I mean, we just watched silently. Obama set red lines that he was going to go in if there people were going into chemical wars or whatever. He never enforced anything. And the same thing is going to happen under Hillary Clinton. I don't see any strong defense policies or foreign policies. I do hope a Republican presidency brings back the strong leadership of America that we used to be known for.
Do you think Trump is going to build a wall in Mexico?
You know, if he does, good for him. I don't care.
You're fine with that?
You know what? It's going to be, border security is important. We don't want people who are deported 10 times keep on coming back openly. I think we should have secure borders.
Do you think he'll get the Mexican government to pay for it? I'm just asking you, because you said that Obama doesn't act upon what he says. And you said that he drew a line and he didn't do this. And
that was while he was the president.
Right.
You know, during campaigns, people say a lot of campaign rhetoric that doesn't actually become law.
And you think that's okay if people lie during campaigns?
No, it's not. People say a lot of things, but, you know, he talked about the Muslim ban.
Lesser of two evils.
He talked about the Muslim ban, but it's very much unconstitutional and illegal. And we know that it's never actually going to pass Congress.
So does it bother you that, you know, the candidate that you're supporting is actually saying things which are illegal and promoting things which are illegal and unconstitutional,
he said that,
in your own words?
No, he said that at a time right after a terror attack, and, you know, he wanted to win the hearts and minds of the scared. So he wasn't thinking basically? No, he was being advised by some very strong anti-Islamic folks. Okay. And that has changed since then. And I hope that, you know, if we keep on living in fear of these people, we're never going to win our narrative. I think, you know, all the Green Party votes or third-party votes, they all help Trump. I think we'd be happy that if you all go out and vote for third-party candidates. I mean, California doesn't really matter anyways, but if it did... I mean, with all honesty, I grew up in Portland, Oregon. It's a very much blue state, just like California. and they're probably going to go Hillary
Well,
Clinton.
you know, one statement about that. In 1948, I don't know if anyone remembers 1948. 1948 was, you know, it was assumed that the Republican candidate would win California by a landslide, and every single poll indicated that this was the case, and it didn't happen, and Harry Truman became the president. So that was, you know, what if that happens, right? And I was going to bring that.
For California to vote Trump, but we'll see.
Okay. So.
I just wanted to, so a couple of things, right? I think going back to the importance of not having Trump as president, if you take a look at just the statements that were made right now, right? How do we, before I say that even, let's take a look at the Republican Party itself. The Republican Party nominated a candidate like Trump, right? That indicates the level of, I guess you could say, sophistication from the other end in terms of how the Republican Party thinks. So you really cannot, although I applaud you for what you're doing, unfortunately, we're not having the same level of openness within the Republican Party for any Muslims to actually engage in a meaningful manner, right? I've had, I think you gave the example of how a certain Muslim wanted to get into Congress, but they couldn't because there is no infrastructure to help Muslims. The second part, let me go back into the international foray, right? It is true, and that's what I said. If it comes down to international policy, it is run by a separate, you know, way of doing it. It's not party politics, it's just policy. It's policy that comes from the military and how far they influence both parties. But what we can do as folks who are influencing the Democratic Party decision-making process is the down ballot. Congressional candidates, Senate candidates, which allows us to actually make a difference there, which we can actually have an impact in who our congressman is. And if we, as a bloc in Anaheim, who think that, hey, you know what, a certain person should not, the country should not bomb a certain country, we can hold that congressional candidate accountable in how he or she voted on a particular, the Iraq war, for example, right? And it allows us to be at the table to say that, you know what, we're not going to write a check for you the next time you come and ask for a campaign donation. We're not going to host a fundraiser for you, right? We have a lot of Muslim business folks who get together and host fundraisers for major party candidates, right? That's where you hold them accountable. And even at the presidential level, you could hold them accountable. And that is why I think that we're still at the infancy stage of getting involved. We need a structure as a Muslim community. We need a structure to build, to organize and out-organize, to be in a firm position to say, look, you're a presidential candidate, we're not coming to you, you're coming to us, and you're going to sit down and let us know what you can accomplish for us as a community.
But you're saying we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Okay, so some people actually think, they actually say that, you know what, we may need Trump to cause a revolution in America. What do you think about that?
Well, you know what? I've said it. I think, if not for today, with the whole breaking news about what he said to a certain woman, and I don't know which woman, but you know there was some breaking news today about women. Which today it happened. From today, I think that you know he's not going to have a chance to win unless we have a major situation in the country. But that is a possibility, right, of him becoming president. And if he becomes president, it gives us the opportunity to say, look what happened by you not getting involved. And then maybe that would force minority communities to engage more. But I still think that, you know, if he's president, he's going to reverse everything that we've accomplished so far in terms of not only appointments and small incremental changes that we've done. Let's take for healthcare, for example, right? You may disagree on anything that you say, but the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare has helped millions and millions of people. So for that in itself, I think has helped a lot of Muslims who cannot afford healthcare. So if you have a Trump presidency, he has already promised that he's going to repeal Obamacare, which is going to affect thousands and thousands of people in this country, including Muslims and minority communities, which struggle because we are a infant community in this. A minority community is an immigrant population which struggles with 2-3 jobs, and having Obamacare has helped some of these folks. And by repealing that, it's going to affect a huge number of people.
Which might lead people to wake up, potentially, someone would argue.
Someone could argue that. Someone could argue that. But, you know, again, I would rather have you
Same question
vote.
too, Zara.
For sure. One of the things that's terrified me so much about the Obama administration has been how little we have cared about all of the atrocities that he has committed. Sure, I have family members who've benefited from health care. But I have friends and family who have also suffered from the murders that he has committed, right? Like the actual blood on their hands. The question for me of do I get to go to the doctor or do I live in daily terror because there's a drone flying over my village is an unfair one. Like I sit in a place of privilege talking about my health care and my access to certain medications when in reality the person that's giving me and my family that is also in the same breath killing Muslims. And we haven't objected. When we look, however, at how the Republican Party has revolutionized as a result of the Obama administration, the reason his Supreme Court nominee can't get through is because we've got a Republican-controlled Congress and Senate. When we look at what happened in 2010 with the increase in attacks on mosques, the increase in vitriol against the Muslim community, and the overall takeover, not just of Congress and the Senate, but of the Republican Party by radical Tea Party activists, I think there's a lesson to be learned, right? They out-organized within themselves, and we sit here trying to vote for the lesser of two evils, rather than saying, look, this is not good enough. So if you want to vote Hillary, hold your nose and do it. Don't say that it's a good thing. Admit that it's evil and it's kind of disgusting and you will have blood on your hands. But you think it's the lesser of two evils in a swing state. In California, it's not even a concern.
Okay, this question for Saba. There are some self-proclaimed Muslim supporters of Trump. You want my pen? Okay. It's twirling it around. So there are some self-proclaimed Muslim supporters of Trump who've made some pretty controversial statements against the Muslim community. Shireen Qudosi actually attacked Zahra for wearing a headscarf herself.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Oh, you didn't see that? Yeah, we can send that to you. And then you have Sajid Tarar, who said that all terrorists are Muslims, which is a blatant lie. It's not a fact. Do you feel like any special obligation to actually speak out against these members who are supporting Trump?
Can I clarify on Shireen? Because I think that's like, I don't care if she made fun of my hijab. I'm worried that she testified before Congress and called Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam a warmonger.
Yeah, that's obviously much
she called
worse.
him
Yes.
a failed prophet
Yes.
following Prophet Isa alayhi salam.
Yeah.
And she is very much aligned and closely working with the Clarion Fund, which is full of all of these anti-Islam law enforcement trainers, Donald Trump advisors, and so on. So personally insult me all you want. Choose to wear a hijab or don't choose to wear a hijab. That's your choice. I've already said I'm all for women's choice. This Trump supporter called the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, a warmonger.
Yeah. So are you planning on making a statement regarding them? What are your thoughts on this?
So I lobby in Washington, D.C., and I run into these people all the time. There isn't any one specific person. I actually got a chance to know Sajid Tarar, and I thought like he had good intentions in what he's trying to do. Sometimes he probably doesn't come across the way he wants to. But
Do you agree with this statement?
No,
Oh,
I
okay,
don't.
okay.
But similarly, I go regularly on Fox News a lot, so I get to debate a lot of former Muslims, not so good Muslims, and everything in between. You know, the challenges that our community is facing are very serious, and the people who are representing us don't have our best interests at heart. People who talk about Islam in Washington, D.C. don't know a thing about Islam, but they're well-known experts there, and they testify on behalf of our communities because we don't step up ourselves. And when we do try, like certain people do, they're always pulled down. I feel like, you know, some people are making strides. We need to encourage those who are working within the Republican Party and the ones who are, you know, struggling. Instead of shunning each other out, I think we can reach out to a lot of them and then hopefully change their perspectives. Okay. But in terms of specific Trump supporters, you know, I've debated Shireen personally. I got a chance to debate Asra Nomani. You know, they all had a problem with my headscarf, but you know, they're Muslims, and it's the hardest thing ever when you have to argue against another Muslim who disagrees with a lot of your core beliefs. And but that's the reality we're facing. The face of Islam in Washington D.C. is very different than what we get to see in the mosques. And currently, mosques are under target. All Muslims are on target. Islam is always on the headlines. We need to take back that narrative and get involved and change their perspectives.
How would you convince Muslims who have kids, you know, their kids are in school, they're concerned that if Donald Trump gets elected, white supremacists are going to be more empowered, bullying is going to go up in schools, potentially masjids are going to be shut down, as Donald Trump potentially said. He might shut down masjids, he might shut down potentially Islamic schools. How would you convince a mother or a family, a Muslim family member who has kids and has all of these things and has these things to potentially lose, why we should still vote for Donald Trump?
Well, I would encourage them to get involved instead of suffering in silence or just reacting to those policies. Get involved at every level. It's funny because I get to see a lot of kids at Trump rallies or Trump events, and I'm surprised they're all like American kids. I'm like, where are the Muslim kids? Like, why are we not like involved within the Republican Party? We need to just change their perspectives, and it's not going to happen by itself. It's not going to happen with us sitting in our mosques isolating ourselves. We have to get involved with the larger, broader community. And yes, we're scared. It's scary time, and I know it's tough, but at the same time, it's our responsibility to change our own. God doesn't help those who don't help themselves. We have to help ourselves and make our voices heard, make a difference. This is our country. This is our Republican Party. We have absolutely every right to make sure that nobody, you know, talks against us.
Do you have kids?
Inshallah.
Yeah, do you have a son, daughter?
No, actually, no, we'll be having.
Oh, you have? Are you coming? What? Okay. So, I mean, you saw what news was released about the statements of Donald Trump on the bus and all of that. Just today. Are you today? Are you familiar with that? The statements that he made and all of that. Now, I mean, you know.
I was disgusted because I was sent. I am on Donald Trump's mega messaging list, and I do get their talking points. And obviously, Trump campaign is struggling. We were hoping that he would be more presidential. He's not the ideal candidate for us.
Right.
I'm more involved in educating Republican Party about Islam and Muslims. And I don't think that we should derail our efforts just because Trump is at the I mean, nobody knew
He's
about
not presidential, you're saying, but I mean,
if he becomes the president next month.
I mean, let's say you had a daughter, right? I mean, if you were getting your daughter married to someone and that you heard that they were speaking like this, would you even consider that person anymore?
No, obviously it was very offensive and disgusting what the comments that he made. As a woman, I was very offended, and I, you know, as a minority, I don't want to see any decent person of any type of character talking like that.
But you still think it's okay for him to be president?
He is the nominee, and he is surrounding himself with people that I do trust to make sure that that type of nonsense doesn't go on.
So it's the party more than the candidate for you?
Yes, I'm behind the Republican Party.
Okay, so not specifically, if it was anybody else, you'd still go with the Republican Party?
I would support the Republican nominee.
Okay. Zahra, for a lot of people, you may say, you know what, it doesn't matter for Muslims. If we get Hillary or if we get Trump, it's not that huge of a deal, kind of like what you're saying. What about for other people who are not Muslim? What about for the tens of millions of undocumented immigrants? Wouldn't Hillary be a good choice for them, that they could potentially, you know, be able to live in this country as citizens?
I mean, if the party that she's coming from is any indicator, President Obama deported more people than President Bush did, right? And so am I particularly hopeful that Hillary, who comes from this party, who worked in his administration, and who has his endorsement, will be any better to other communities than he was, right? Like, I don't buy it. Like, what indicator do we have that she's going to change? Like, she is as much an establishment candidate as we've ever seen before.
Okay, very good. So what I want to do is we have just about 10 to 15 minutes left. want to open it up for the audience. I'm sure many people have questions. Where is Ahmed? If you can come and grab this microphone. Ahmed walked up. Samar, can you do this? But I need the audience cooperation on one thing, and that is, first of all, Ammu Samir is going to hold the microphone. Please don't try to grab the microphone from him. He'll stand right here in the middle. We can form a single file line if you'd like to ask a question. And when you're asking a question, please make sure that you get to the question within 15 seconds. This is not a forum for comments. I need the audience's cooperation. If I see that you're not getting to a question within 15 seconds, I'm going to have to stop you. Is the audience agreeing to this? Are they going to support me in this in case it happens? Thank you. Okay, anyone can come up and file a single forward line. Let us know who your question is to specifically.
Well, it's to the panel.
Okay.
I think that with the Trump presidency, after seeing the Republican National Convention, it looked like a Nuremberg rally to me, and I was fearful of that as a person of color. And knowing the United States' domestic history with placing Japanese in internment camps, who were American citizens, I don't know that we can risk. So, do you have anything to say to that? I mean, does anyone have anything to say to that? Because I think it's a possibility.
I was at the RNC, and actually I saw quite a bit of diversity there. Sadly, I hope and I pray that our efforts will make sure that nothing like that ever happens again. But at the same time, I hope that Muslims will be involved within regardless of which president takes office.
So
Muslims
none of the statements there bothered you at all in the RNC rally?
No.
No, okay.
No. I mean, I thought I got a chance to talk directly and confront people who had made statements in the past. I mean, I had a very interesting, long
But
conversation.
you attended and listened to the entire thing?
I did. I was
Okay.
there. I was watching it. I'm at one of the RNC high-level donors, so I got a chance to meet with all the candidates and many senators, I was watching from the top suite. Another thing I noticed was there are very strong groups that are lobbying against us. I saw, the Republican Hindu Coalition was there. They dropped a check for $1 million just so Trump enacts policies against Muslims. He was so happy that he talked about a Muslim ban. And he wanted policies against Pakistan, and this was the Indian American person, and I was surprised because I talked to this person and I got a chance to talk.
Okay,
meet.
very good.
I just hope that we can lobby for our own special interest and
Excellent.
make sure that that doesn't happen.
Thank you. Next question. No, that suffices.
Sorry. Yeah, I know it didn't. So my question is actually just for the panel. So it was implied that the down vote or the down ballot votes are actually what count, but the thing is, there's hardly any. I guess we're very uninformed as a people, not just as Muslims, but America in general, about the down vote. So what can we do, I guess, as a way to become more informed about the vote? And what do you suggest so that we're more informed, and then see how we can be more so than the presidential vote?
Okay.
I know he was looking at you when you asked the question, but I will answer it. So I think, part of it's our responsibility, right? It's our responsibility as a citizen, as a community, to go out there and engage. I know IIOC had a local candidate forum last Friday, right? That's an opportunity for you to come in and listen and talk to and find out who's representing you, right? That's one way of doing it. The other thing is, I rarely see Muslims getting, I think Zara mentioned this, is coming out and organizing, volunteering for a campaign, volunteering for the candidate that you think is going to make a difference in your school board race, right? When I ran for school board, I probably had one Muslim brother who came and said, hey, I'm going to help you out, right? In terms of continuously walking for me. So that's all opportunities that people are not going to come to you and say, hey, get involved, right? I mean, I did, and I know that there are many people, many campaigns which will do during an election cycle, but it's our collective responsibility to do that individually.
So I'm going to answer both questions. I hope that's okay.
Go ahead.
For me, when I think of the RNC feeling like a Nuremberg rally, I again think of punched in the face or stabbed in the back, right? Part of my concern about Hillary Clinton is that she's an establishment candidate. She has the endorsement not only of President Obama, but also of her husband, who got on stage and said, if you are Muslim and you want to help fight terrorism, you can stay. And I was like, oh, I didn't know I needed your permission, Bill, right? Or when we think of Donald Trump's comments against women, Bill Clinton has taken action that is equivalent to the words that Donald Trump was saying. And so to me, a lot of it feels one and the same. I have been in touch with the families of drone victims. So it might not look like Japanese internment camps today, but under the Obama administration, US citizens and non-citizens who have equal right to life have been killed because they're men or because they're at a wedding that someone else of interest is. Like the idea of going and drone bombing rescue workers is something that the Obama administration has done and defended. Domestically, they have defended targeting mentally ill individuals and bringing them into terror plots, literally taking people who could not hold down a job or pay rent on their own and turning them into terrorists and then catching them. And then where do they go? To the communication management units. Guantanamo North, special prisons built in America that we never talk about that are majority Muslim. And people's crimes, they talked to an FBI agent and didn't know their rights. So that's on that.
Yeah.
I'm equally scared of both candidates when I think of, it's not for me about who is president, it is about what is the war
All
on
right, thank
ISIS
you.
going to look
Thank
like.
you, sir. Well, let's move on to the next
Down
question.
ballot, vote, and check out the CARE voter guide.
Okay. Next question. Let's move on. We got some more questions.
My question is to the sister who is supporting Trump here, and she mentioned the value system, the Islamic value system. I know that the Democratic Party is for the poor and the middle class people, and this is also an Islamic value to help those who are, weak and destitute and so on and so forth that need help. Why are we basing our decisions to vote on value system, religious value system, and not interests? Because in terms of politics, it's the interests that count, and money talks also. If you donate a lot to any candidate and come in mass, then probably we will get that candidate elected.
Great. Question for Saba.
Well, when President Obama was elected, less than 2 states allowed same-sex marriage. Currently, all 50 states allow it. That's something that's un-Islamic, and that wouldn't have passed were it not for a Democratic president. Under the Republican administration, they are very strong on traditional family values, and that's something that I believe that I couldn't support as a Democrat. And there are liberal policies across the board that are being enacted in a lot of the states, but those are not something that align with the Islamic values.
What about his specific question to the lower income families and middle class?
I mean, I think
Is that an Islamic value, or is you don't think
of course,
that's...
we want
okay.
to help. It's not just everybody wants to help the poor and needy and I think but we don't want to turn it into like a socialist system where if we're just taking care of everybody and nobody's making anything. I don't think that we want to having a capitalist system where you work hard and if you do your best, you can make anything. The American exceptionalism, American dream.
You think Trump is a good example of that?
I think Trump he has built successful businesses regardless. I mean, he's had issues, but I think the working hard American dream, that's still valid. And I think a lot of our community struggles with that. And we do our best because we do engage at the highest levels and make the best out of our stay
Excellent.
here.
Next question. Well, let's just move on. I know you want to come, but the question was specifically for her. So.
For the Sister Zahra, you said you would vote green, and you're thinking because this is California, it's a done deal, it's going to go blue. Nothing is a done deal.
Of course.
So encouraging someone to vote third party is a vote for Trump. So either way, don't you think blood would still be on your hands?
So I would vote green in California or in a swing state. I would vote third party. So that was what Sheikh Mustafa Umar forced me to conclude publicly. So even in a swing state, I would vote third party. And for me, it's not just about the one vote or the one president. My one vote, let's be real, folks, is not going to decide the presidency. But my one vote can send a very strong message that the two-party system is broken, that every 4 years we're choosing between evil and evil, right? Lesser of evil is still evil. And so instead, I take my one vote and I invest it in increasing the conversation, expanding the dialogue, and growing either choice of another party so that they can participate in the debate, so that they can get federal support, and so that more and more people are talking about them. Every 4 years, we operate from a place of fear and we pick something disgusting, right? Like, that's what it feels like. I've been voting for a couple of elections now, and that's every 4 years it is. No one's happy with any of the candidates. And remember, by the way, that the lesser of two evils in this race was the one that released the secret Muslim pictures of President Obama last time, was the one that threatened to bomb Pakistan, right? Like, this is what we're getting at, and we're continuing to limit our choices by not being creative and being daring.
All right, thank you, Zahra. Next question.
Sister Seba, you said that Donald Trump is surrounding himself with good support, and that is why you're comfortable with him. Yet he has Kellyanne Conway and Paul Manafort, who are xenophobic and highly nationalistic, managing his campaign. How would that support you're comfortable with?
I've met both of them. I think they're both great. Kellyanne Conway, and I think she's a strong pro-life, pro-traditional family values, traditional marriage person. Yes, they have they've made comments.
Any xenophobic comments that you came across?
I mean, on a personal basis, no. I think they're both trying to work
on an
hard.
official basis?
I'm sure people have said a lot of things that are in their life that they may not agree with.
But how about Paul Manafort's involvement with the alt-right movement?
Well, I think that's what propped up Trump. I think, but at the same time, when I met Paul at the RNC, I talked to him about the Muslim involvement, Muslim outreach, and I felt comfortable. I know that they need to step it up big time in terms of outreach to all minorities, but in general, I feel like if Muslims are not on the table, if they're not doing the outreach, they're not going to come to our mosques by themselves. We have to go out and get involved within their campaigns and parties to change their views on us.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
How do we balance the voting process and within the two-party system? Because voting is a right, but I feel that for Muslims, I believe that this two-party system being at the table is, as we indicated, respectability politics, as this has been shown in other countries, especially with the Palestinians being in the Israeli representative system. And for the past 35 years, yet nothing has happened.
Who's the question for?
For the panel.
For anyone, okay.
So do we think that as Muslims, if we are voting for either party, that we are doing the same thing?
Okay, so this will be the last question then. I'll allow everyone to answer.
Do I get to answer all the other questions?
No, just focus on this one.
Because I love to take some shots. But anyways, to answer that question, I think it goes back to what I said before, and I think many in this panel have said is, we got to get involved, right? If we want to have a lasting impact in terms of what our values are, or what we want to, as a community, advocate for, we need to show numbers. And if we are not at the table in numbers and out organizing, I think the comment that I wanted to make was about the Tea Party movement, right? They did make that effort where they actually out-organized everybody else. The right out-organized everybody else in the Republican Party to actually have, and I think which has a Republican now candidate, Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, if you don't out-organize everybody else, you can't sit here and complain about why we're not getting what we need in terms of a party, either party.
Right, thank you. Sabah.
I agree. I think we need to get involved and organized, but not just the numbers. I think we need to step up our resources, support candidates. I mean, they're hosting fundraisers. Donald Trump is hosting events all over the states. I think we need to be there. If it takes a few dollars, we should spend the money and get our voices heard. Lobbying costs a lot, but that's how politics works here. So
thank you.
So I'm here in a personal capacity, but this will sound a little bit like a care pitch. Voting is like the absolute least you can do. Don't be particularly proud of yourself for voting. It's a minimum obligation that you fulfill. The real work begins on November 9th, and I will continue to say that. So on November 9th, figure out who won and which seats, whether or not you like them, and go introduce yourself. When we think of other communities, it's a little bit cliche sometimes to be like, oh, this community does it right. You know who does it right? A lot of times, the Jewish American community. And it's not because they go after a presidential candidate, it's because they build a relationship when someone gets on the school board. That person then goes to city council, then state legislative office. So build the relationship. Donate the money. When I ask my friends how many of us are actually giving money to political candidates, it's embarrassing. We're not. If they've never seen my name on a check, they're going to listen to me a lot less. So yes, there is a lot of money in politics, but there's also a lot of money in Muslim pockets. And we need to spend it. And then we need to continue to show up. That means that we thank candidates when they do something right. If you look at the CARE voter guide, you'll see that only 2 elected officials in the entire state of California, so 120 combined, voted the correct way on every single legislative priority we identified. But no one has noticed. No one has given them any extra money for it, and I take responsibility for that because they're in my region, right? And then we continue to show up. And we do it with other communities. The last example
I'm
I'm
going
going
to
to
have
give
to
you,
put 15-second closing
the last
statement.
example is there's been a lot of talk of gay marriage on this panel. You know what the LGBTQ community did in the Obama administration? They were chaining themselves to the White House. So they were showing up, they were voting, they were donating, and they were protesting. None of these means of engagement are exclusive to the other. We should be doing all of them more.
Thank you. 15 seconds, Saba. 15 seconds, Al. Sorry, very short. Go ahead.
I would urge you all to get involved in your local Republican parties. Reach out to the Anaheim area local Republicans. Get involved. For women, they have League of Federation of Republican Women. I think it's great. Just go network, and I think California Republican Party, just show up at their annual events and
Excellent.
give
Thank you very
$1,000
much.
or something. You'll
Al.
get your voices heard.
So presidential election is very important, but I'm going to reiterate that the down ballot is more important because especially in California, it affects your life in a school board and a city council race, so pay attention to that and get involved and volunteer.
All right, thank you. And a reminder that IIOC does not support any candidate officially. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. This is an educational event. It's important that Muslims need to be educated about issues. If you enjoyed this event, if you would like to attend more events like this, let us know that, you know what, I would like to see more events like this. You guys are doing a good job organizing. That helps motivate us to continue to keep going. So you can talk to some of the people who are part of this masjid, and inshallah we'll continue to try to bring high quality educational events to this program. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and guide us at all times. We ask Allah to help us to see the truth as truth and to help us follow it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to see the false as false and allow us to shun it. Ameen. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Please help pick up all the chairs, and then we're going to get straight to Isha prayer. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.